The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I kept my hands wrapped around the mug anyway, letting the ceramic anchor me to something solid while my world threatened to collapse. The fluorescent lights of Valentino's Bistro buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across empty tables that would fill with Manhattan's elite in just a few hours. Right now, at 5:30 in the morning, the restaurant belonged to the prep cooks and to me, the woman who couldn't afford to lose this job but was about to anyway.
Sophia, you listening?
Marco's voice cut through my thoughts. He stood in the doorway of his cramped office, arms crossed, his expression caught somewhere between pity and irritation.
I said we have to let you go. The owner's nephew needs a position, and you're the newest server. It's not personal.
Everything was personal when you were 3 months behind on rent and your daughter's asthma medication cost more than your weekly paycheck. Everything was personal when you were 26 years old and every door you'd tried to open had slammed in your face. I understand, I heard myself say, voice steadier than I felt. When's my last shift?
Tonight, actually. We'll pay you through the weekend as severance.
Marco had the decency to look uncomfortable.
Look, you're a good worker, Sophia. I'll give you a reference. Something will turn up.
Something always turned up, but it was never enough. Never quite enough to dig myself out of the hole that had been my life since my husband died 2 years ago, leaving me with a mountain of medical debt and a 4-year-old daughter who asked why Daddy wasn't coming home. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, and retreated to the dining room to begin my opening duties. Salt and pepper shakers to fill, silverware to polish, tables to set with the precision Valentino's demanded. My hands moved through the familiar motions while my mind spiraled through calculations. Rent was due in 5 days. Lily's prescription needed refilling in 3. The electricity bill was overdue, and I'd already received the disconnect notice. The morning prep shift passed in a blur. By 10 a.m., the day servers arrived, chattering about their weekend plans and complaining about customers with the casual entitlement of people who'd never had to choose between feeding their children and keeping the lights on. I smiled and nodded in the right places, years of practice making the mask almost natural.
Sophia, you're covering Section 3 tonight,
Marco said as the lunch rush began.
We've got a private party in the back room at 8. VIP treatment, understood? Whoever they are, the owner personally approved the reservation and said to give them anything they want.
VIP meant generous tips if you played it right. One last chance to walk away with something that might buy me a few more days.
Understood.
The lunch shift was brutal. A bachelorette party that sent back 3 dishes. A businessman who complained about everything from the temperature of his water to the angle of the sunlight through the windows. A family with children who treated the dining room like a playground. I smiled through it all, my feet screaming in shoes that were 2 sizes too small because I couldn't afford to replace them, my back aching from carrying trays that seemed to grow heavier with each passing hour. By the time the dinner shift began, I was running on fumes in desperation. The evening light cast long shadows through Valentino's floor-to-ceiling windows, transforming the dining room into something almost magical. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, soft jazz played from hidden speakers, and the scent of fresh bread and slow-simmered sauces filled the air with promises of comfort and luxury. My section filled quickly. A couple celebrating their anniversary, a group of Wall Street types already 3 drinks deep, a woman dining alone who spent more time on her phone than looking at her food. I moved between them with practiced efficiency, anticipating needs before they were voiced, invisible except when needed. The private room remained empty until exactly 8 p.m. Then they arrived. 6 men in suits that probably cost more than my annual income, moving with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. But it was the man at the center who made everyone else fade into background noise. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair silvered at the temples and eyes the color of winter storms. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored to a body that moved with predatory grace. A scar ran along his left jawline, barely visible but somehow making him more striking rather than less. Power radiated from him like heat from asphalt in summer. Not the performative power of politicians or corporate executives, but something deeper, more dangerous. The kind of power that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. He scanned the dining room as he entered, those storm-gray eyes cataloging exits and sightlines with the automatic assessment of someone who'd survived by staying aware. When his gaze passed over me, I felt it like a physical touch. There and gone in a heartbeat, dismissing me as no threat, no concern. They settled into the private room, and I took a breath before approaching.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Sophia, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with something to drink? Macallan 25, neat,
the powerful man said, his voice deep and smooth with an accent I couldn't quite place. East Coast old money, maybe, or European sophistication?
And bring the wine list. We'll be ordering shortly.
I nodded and retreated, hyper-aware of the sudden tension in the restaurant. Marco appeared at my elbow, his face pale.
Do you know who that is?
Should I?
That's Dominic Castellano.
He said the name like it should mean something. When I remained blank, he continued.
He runs half the real estate in Manhattan. Restaurants, clubs, construction contracts. If you want to build anything in this city, you go through the Castellanos first.
The way he said it suggested that real estate wasn't the only thing Dominic Castellano controlled, but I didn't press. I had enough problems without borrowing more. I poured the Macallan with careful precision and delivered it along with the wine list, keeping my eyes down, my smile professional but not too warm. The evening progressed smoothly. They ordered the tasting menu, bottle after bottle of wine that cost more than my monthly rent, their conversation conducted in low tones that didn't carry beyond their private room. I served each course with the attentiveness Valentino's demanded, refilling glasses before they emptied, clearing plates the moment they were finished, anticipating needs before they were voiced. I was clearing the appetizer plates when I noticed him. A server I'd never seen before, working the bar area. Young, maybe early 20s, with nervous energy that seemed wrong for Valentino's carefully cultivated atmosphere of polished professionalism. His hands shook slightly as he poured drinks, and his eyes kept darting toward the private room with an intensity that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Something was wrong. I'd learned to trust my instincts growing up in the Bronx, in neighborhoods where reading people meant survival. This man wasn't a server. The way he held himself, the way his jacket hung slightly wrong on the left side, the way he positioned himself with clear sightlines to the private room, everything about him screamed danger. I caught Marco's attention as I passed.
Who's the new guy at the bar?
What new guy? Marco frowned, scanning the space.
Tony's working bar tonight, same as always.
But Tony wasn't working the bar. This stranger was, and Tony was nowhere to be seen. My heart began to pound against my ribs as pieces clicked into place with terrifying clarity, the VIP reservation that had come directly from the owner. The private room positioned away from the main dining area. The nervous stranger watching Dominic Castellano like a hawk watching prey. This was a setup. I moved toward the bar, trying to appear casual despite the adrenaline flooding my system. Up close, I could see the bulge beneath the stranger's jacket more clearly. Not just one weapon, but possibly two. His finger kept twitching toward his waistband, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the restaurant's comfortable temperature. Our eyes met for a split second, and I saw the exact moment he registered my awareness. His expression shifted from nervous tension to cold calculation. He knew that I knew. Time compressed into heartbeats. I had maybe seconds before he moved, before whatever was about to happen became irreversible, screaming, would trigger the attack. Running to warn Castellano directly would put me in the line of fire. Calling the police would take too long. I grabbed a check presenter and a pen, my hands trembling as I scrawled across the blank receipt inside. The words came in desperate bursts. Armed men. Setup. 3 shooters. The stranger was moving now, abandoning his pretense at the bar, his hands slipping inside his jacket. I saw movement in my peripheral vision. 2 more men I hadn't noticed before, positioned near the kitchen entrance and the main door. All 3 converging on the private room with synchronized precision. Run now! I walked toward the private room with the check presenter clutched in my hands, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The stranger was just steps behind me, close enough that I could smell his cheap cologne and nervous sweat. The other 2 were closing in from opposite directions, a coordinated attack that would trap everyone inside. I pushed through the door of the private room just ahead of the stranger. 6 pairs of eyes turned toward me, 5 with mild annoyance at the interruption, 1 with sharp intelligence that missed nothing. Dominic Castellano's storm-gray eyes met mine as I crossed directly to him, the check presenter held out like an offering.
Sir, I'm terribly sorry, but there's been an issue with your credit card authorization. Could you please review this?
His hand reached for the presenter with practiced ease, but I saw the exact moment confusion flickered across his features. They hadn't used a credit card yet, hadn't even asked for the check, but he was intelligent enough not to question the discrepancy in front of his associates. He opened the presenter. I watched his face as he read my desperate message, watched the subtle shift in his posture as understanding registered, watched those winter storm eyes lift to mine with an intensity that stole my breath. Behind me, I heard the stranger curse under his breath, heard the unmistakable sound of metal sliding against leather as he drew his weapon, heard one of the other men shout something in a language I didn't understand. Dominic moved. 1 second he was seated, reading my message with calm composure. The next, he had overturned the heavy table toward the door, creating a barrier as he drew a gun I hadn't known he was carrying. His associates reacted with military precision, weapons appearing in hands that had been holding wine glasses moments before, bodies moving into defensive positions with practiced efficiency. Gunshots exploded in the confined space, deafeningly loud, the sound punching through my chest like physical blows. Someone grabbed my arm and yanked me down behind the overturned table. I found myself pressed against Dominic Castellano's side, his body a shield between me and the doorway where the shooters had been. More gunshots, shouting, the sound of breaking glass. I squeezed my eyes shut, hands pressed over my ears, trying to make myself as small as possible. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I was a waitress, a mother, a woman just trying to survive until tomorrow. I wasn't supposed to be here in the middle of whatever this was. Then silence, sudden and complete except for the ringing in my ears. "Clear," someone said. A man's voice, rough with adrenaline. "All 3 down," another voice confirmed. I felt Dominic shift beside me, felt his hand on my shoulder, surprisingly gentle. "Are you hurt?" I opened my eyes to find him looking at me with concern that seemed genuine despite everything. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. My whole body was trembling, shock beginning to set in now that the immediate danger had passed. He helped me to my feet with careful precision, his hand steady at my elbow. Around us, his men were securing the scene with brutal efficiency. The 3 shooters lay motionless in spreading pools of blood. Other diners were screaming, scrambling for exits. Marco stood frozen in the doorway, his face the color of old paper. "Get her out of here," Dominic said to one of his associates. "Take her somewhere safe." "I'll handle this." "Wait," I managed, finding my voice finally. "My daughter. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I need to—" "Where is she?" "Daycare. The Learning Tree on Amsterdam Avenue. They close at 9. I have to pick her up. I have to—" "We'll get her." His voice was calm, authoritative, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You and your daughter will both be safe. You have my word." "I don't understand. Why would I need—" "Those men didn't come alone." He glanced toward the bodies, his expression hardening. "This was a coordinated hit. Professional. Which means whoever sent them will know it failed, and they'll know you're the reason why. That makes you a liability they'll want to eliminate." The words took a moment to penetrate through my shock. When they did, a new kind of fear flooded through me, colder and more visceral than anything I'd felt during the shooting. "My daughter," I whispered. "Lily, if they know about me, they know about her. Which is why my men are already on their way to secure her." He pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in rapid Italian too fast for me to follow. Then he turned back to me, his storm gray eyes holding mine with unexpected warmth. "What's your full name?" "Sophia Chen. My daughter is Lily Chen. She's 4. She has asthma. She needs her inhaler. We'll get everything she needs." He nodded to the man beside him. "Marco, take Sophia to the car. Wait for my call before moving." The man, Marco, apparently, though not the restaurant manager, guided me through the chaos of the dining room toward a side exit. I caught a glimpse of actual Marco arguing with someone on the phone, of police sirens approaching in the distance, of blood on the pristine white tablecloth where moments ago I'd been serving wine and taking orders. None of it felt real. It was like watching a movie of someone else's life, disconnected and surreal. I'd come to work expecting to serve my last shift and collect a final paycheck. Instead, I'd saved a man's life and apparently painted a target on both my back and my daughter's. The car was a black SUV with tinted windows, sleek and expensive. Marco opened the back door and I slid inside, my legs trembling so badly I nearly fell. The leather seats were soft, the interior smelling of new car and subtle cologne. So different from my ancient Honda, with its broken air conditioning and passenger seat held together with duct tape. Marco closed the door and took position beside the vehicle, hand resting on something beneath his jacket. Other men I hadn't noticed before materialized from the shadows, forming a perimeter around the SUV. Professional security, the kind that cost more per hour than I made in a week. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from the daycare.
Lily picked up by family friend as authorized. She's safe and excited about the ice cream they promised her.
I stared at the message, confusion mixing with relief. I hadn't authorized anyone to pick up Lily. The daycare had strict protocols, but if Dominic's people had gotten to her first, if they'd used some kind of influence or deception to secure her before anyone else could... Another text, this time from an unknown number.
Your daughter is secure.
Photo attached for verification. The image showed Lily sitting in what looked like the back of another SUV, similar to the one I was in. She was smiling, holding a stuffed animal I didn't recognize, completely oblivious to any danger. A woman's hand was visible in the frame, gentle on Lily's shoulder. My daughter was safe. Whatever else happened, whatever came next, Lily was safe. I pressed my forehead against the cool window and let the tears come. The SUV didn't move for 20 minutes. I sat in the back seat, watching through tinted windows as police cars arrived, their lights painting the street in rotating shades of red and blue. Uniformed officers entered Valentino's while plainclothes detectives followed, notebooks already out. I could see Marco, restaurant Marco, not security Marco, gesticulating wildly, probably explaining that he had no idea what had just happened in his establishment. Security Marco opened the driver's door and slid behind the wheel.
We're moving in 2 minutes. Mr. Castellano is finishing with the police now.
I should talk to them, I said, my voice hoarse.
You witnessed a attempted robbery that was interrupted by licensed security personnel acting in defense of their employer.
His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror.
That's the story. That's what everyone will say. If the police want to talk to you, they'll do it through Mr. Castellano's attorneys. But that's not what happened. That's exactly what happened, from a certain point of view.
He started the engine.
Ma'am, I understand you're confused and scared, but
right now the best thing you can do is trust that Mr. Castellano knows how to handle this situation.
He's had practice.
The implication hung in the air. This wasn't Dominic Castellano's first assassination attempt. This was just another night in a life I couldn't begin to comprehend. The rear door opened and Dominic slid into the seat beside me. Up close, I could see the strain around his eyes, the tension in his jaw. But his voice remained calm as he said,
Drive. The safe house in Tribeca.
We pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the crime scene and the life I'd known until an hour ago. I stared out the window at familiar streets that suddenly felt foreign, at people walking home from dinner or heading to late shifts, completely unaware that death had just brushed past them in an upscale restaurant.
Your daughter is already at the safe house, Dominic said. She's with Elena, who has experience with children. She's been fed, bathed, and is currently watching cartoons. Her inhaler and other medications were retrieved from your apartment along with clothes and necessities for both of you.
I turned to look at him, trying to process the efficiency with which he'd dismantled my life and rebuilt it elsewhere.
You sent people into my apartment? I sent people to keep you alive.
His tone wasn't harsh, just matter-of-fact.
The men who tried to kill me tonight were professionals. Albanian mob based on their tattoos and methods.
They don't work cheap, and they don't give up after one failed attempt. By now, their organization knows the hit failed. They'll have teams canvassing your known locations, your apartment, your daughter's daycare, anywhere you might run. We had maybe a 30-minute window to secure everything that mattered before they did. The casual way he discussed my life being in danger made something cold settle in my stomach.
I don't understand why they'd care about me. I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress who happened to notice something wrong. You're the woman who saved my life.
He shifted to face me more directly, his storm gray eyes intense.
That makes you valuable to me and a threat to them. They'll want to eliminate you before you can identify anyone else involved in tonight's operation, and they'll want to send a message to anyone else who might consider interfering in their business. By killing me. By killing you and everyone you love.
His bluntness was almost worse than the words themselves.
I'm sorry, Sophia. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you went to work tonight, but the moment you handed me that receipt, the moment you chose to warn me instead of staying silent,
You stepped into a world that doesn't let people step back out easily. I thought of Lily, my beautiful daughter who still believed the world was fundamentally good, who trusted that adults would protect her and that bad things only happened in fairy tales. I can't do this. I can't live like this. I have a daughter to think about, which is exactly why you're going to accept my protection. His voice softened slightly.
I know you're scared. I know everything just changed in ways you can't process yet. But I promise you this, Sophia. As long as you're under my protection, no one will touch you or your daughter. No one. For how long? Days? Weeks? The rest of my life? Until the threat is neutralized.
He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then turned the screen toward me.
These are the men who tried to kill me tonight. The Shala brothers, Albanian organized crime. They've been trying to move into territory I control for the past year. Tonight was their most aggressive move yet.
The photos showed the 3 shooters from the restaurant, along with dossiers that included their criminal histories, known associates, and last known addresses. The amount of information was staggering, suggesting a level of surveillance and intelligence gathering that went far beyond normal business operations.
How do you have all this? Because I survive by knowing my enemies better than they know themselves.
He pocketed the phone.
The Shalas work for a larger organization run by a man named Dritan Marku. He's the one who ordered tonight's hit. He's the one who'll order the next one if we give him the chance. We? You're part of this now, whether you want to be or not.
His expression held something that might have been regret.
I'm sorry for that. Truly. But I won't apologize for keeping you alive.
The SUV pulled up to a building in Tribeca that looked like converted industrial space. Brick facade, large windows, the kind of place that cost millions and pretended to be humble. Security Marco opened my door, and Dominic guided me inside with a hand at the small of my back, protective rather than possessive. The elevator required a keycard to operate. We rode up in silence, the only sound the mechanical hum of the lift and my own ragged breathing. Every floor we passed took me further from my normal life, deeper into whatever this new existence was going to be. The penthouse was beautiful in a way that felt almost aggressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, hardwood floors, furniture that belonged in design magazines. And in the center of the living room, sitting on a plush sofa with a woman I didn't recognize, was Lily.
Mama!
She launched herself off the couch and ran toward me, her small body colliding with mine in a hug that nearly knocked me over. We had ice cream, and Miss Elena let me pick out new pajamas, and there's a TV in the bedroom that's bigger than our whole apartment. I buried my face in her hair, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling her solid warmth against me. She was safe. Whatever else happened, she was safe. Did you have a good time, baby?
The best.
She pulled back to look at me, her dark eyes shining with excitement. Are we having a sleepover here? Miss Elena said we might stay for a few days. Over her head, I met the eyes of the woman who'd been watching her. Elena was in her 40s, with kind eyes and the competent air of someone who'd raised children of her own. She gave me a small nod, a silent communication that Lily was fine. Everything was fine. No need to worry the child. Yes, sweetheart. We're having a sleepover. I forced brightness into my tone. Isn't that exciting? Super exciting! Can I watch more cartoons? Just for a little while, then it's bedtime. Elena shepherded Lily back to the sofa, and I felt Dominic's presence behind me, close but not crowding.
We need to talk, he said quietly. But first, you should eat something. When's the last time you had food?
I tried to remember and couldn't. Breakfast, maybe? Before my shift at Valentino's, back when my biggest problem was getting fired and wondering how I'd make rent. A lifetime ago.
I'm not hungry. You're in shock. You need to eat anyway.
He gestured toward the kitchen.
Elena prepared soup. It's simple, easy on the stomach. You should try.
I wanted to argue, but my body chose that moment to remind me it was running on empty. My hands were still trembling from adrenaline crash, and the room had started to feel slightly unreal, edges soft and colors too bright. The kitchen was as impressive as the rest of the penthouse, all stainless steel and marble countertops. Dominic ladled soup into a bowl, something that smelled of chicken and herbs, and set it in front of me at the breakfast bar. Then he poured himself a whiskey and leaned against the counter, watching me with those penetrating gray eyes. I took a tentative sip. The soup was good, better than anything I could have made, and my body responded with sudden, desperate hunger. I ate mechanically, not tasting much, just fueling a system that had been running on fumes for too long.
Tell me about yourself,
Dominic said after a long silence.
the real version, not what's in the background check my people already ran.
I nearly dropped my spoon.
You ran a background check on me? I run background checks on everyone who works in establishments I frequent. Standard security procedure.
He took a sip of his whiskey.
But those only tell me facts. Sophia Marie Chen, 26 years old, widowed, 1 daughter, community college dropout, 3 jobs in the past 2 years, eviction notice filed against your current apartment. What they don't tell me is how you noticed a threat that my own security missed. How you had the courage to warn a stranger when staying silent would have been safer. How you managed to write that note without the shooters noticing.
I grew up in the Bronx, I said quietly. Not the nice parts. The parts where you learn to read people or you don't survive. My mom was... I paused, old pain rising. She had problems. Addiction. I learned young to spot when someone was dangerous, when a situation was about to turn bad.
And your husband?
David. His name still hurt to say.
He was a paramedic. Responded to a mass shooting at a grocery store 2 years ago. Took a bullet while trying to save a child. I set down my spoon, my appetite suddenly gone. They said he was a hero. They gave him a posthumous medal. It doesn't pay for his medical debts or raise our daughter.
Dominic was quiet for a long moment.
I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything.
The bitterness in my voice surprised me.
I've been sorry for 2 years. Sorry doesn't keep the lights on or buy asthma medication or...
My voice cracked and I pressed my hands against my eyes, forcing back tears.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be taking this out on you. You just saved my life and got pulled into a world you never asked to be part of. I think you're entitled to be angry.
He refilled my water glass.
But Sophia, I need you to understand something. The people who tried to kill me tonight, they won't stop. Dritan Marku has invested resources, reputation, and men in moving against me. Tonight's failure makes me look stronger and him look weaker. He can't afford to let that stand. So what happens now? Now, I eliminate the threat.
His tone was matter-of-fact, discussing murder the way other people discussed business meetings.
It's already in motion. My people are tracking down everyone involved in tonight's operation. By morning, the Shala organization will be significantly diminished.
The casual way he discussed killing made my stomach turn.
You're going to murder people. I'm going to protect what's mine.
He met my eyes steadily.
I won't apologize for that, Sophia. In my world, showing mercy to enemies who tried to kill you is the same as painting a target on your back and inviting the next attempt. I learned that lesson young, and it's kept me alive when softer men died.
I thought about David, who'd run toward danger to save a stranger's child, who'd believed in helping people even when it cost him everything. He would have been horrified by this conversation, by this man, by everything I was being pulled into. But David was dead, and I was alive, and I had a daughter to protect.
What do you want from me?
I asked finally.
I want you to accept my protection until this is resolved. Live here where I can guarantee your safety. Let my people handle your practical concerns, your rent, your debts, your daughter's needs. Focus on staying alive and keeping Lily safe. That sounds like charity. It's a debt. His voice was firm. You saved my life. In my world, that creates an obligation that can't be dismissed. I protect you because I owe you. It's that simple. Nothing is that simple.
A ghost of a smile crossed his lips.
No, nothing is. But that's the foundation we're building from.
He set down his glass.
I'll be honest with you, Sophia. I need to understand how you spotted the threat. My security team is good. The best money can buy. They've kept me alive through 3 assassination attempts in the past year, but you saw something. They missed. That makes you valuable in ways beyond the debt I owe you. I'm not some kind of human threat detector. No, but you have instincts my trained professionals lack.
He studied me with an intensity that made me want to look away.
I'd like you to consider working for me in a more formal capacity once this immediate danger passes. Security consulting, analyzing potential threats, helping identify vulnerabilities in my operations.
The offer was so unexpected, I almost laughed.
I'm a waitress with a community college education. What do I know about security? You know enough to save my life when trained bodyguards didn't see the danger.
He leaned forward slightly.
I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm asking you to think about it. You said you needed work, needed money. I'm offering both, along with protection that ensures your daughter grows up safe. It was tempting in ways I didn't want to examine too closely. Financial security, safety for Lily. A way out of the endless cycle of debt and desperation that had defined my life since David died. But it also meant stepping deeper into a world where people discussed murder over whiskey, where violence was a business tool, where my daughter would grow up knowing her mother worked for a man who solved problems with bullets. I need time, I said finally. You have it. For now, focus on settling in. Elena will show you to your rooms. Everything you and Lily need should already be there, but if something's missing, just ask. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. I stood, my legs unsteady, exhaustion hitting me like a physical weight. Thank you. For protecting Lily. For everything. Thank me by staying alive. He walked me to the door of the kitchen. Get some rest, Sophia. Tomorrow we'll talk more about what comes next. Elena showed us to a bedroom that was larger than my entire apartment. 2 beds had been set up, one clearly sized for a child, with stuffed animals and pillows that Lily immediately claimed with delighted squeals. The attached bathroom had a tub big enough to swim in, fluffy towels, and toiletries that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I went through the motions of getting Lily ready for bed, brushing her teeth, helping her into the new pajamas Elena had bought, reading her a story from a book I didn't recognize. She chattered happily about the adventure, about how nice everyone had been, about how she hoped we could stay in the fancy apartment forever. She had no idea how close she'd come to losing everything tonight. No idea that men with guns had been looking for us, that we were alive only because someone else's security team had moved faster than assassins. Mama, why are you crying? Lily's small hand touched my cheek, wiping away tears I hadn't realized were falling. Just tired, baby. It's been a long day. Are you sad about the restaurant? Miss Elena said you don't work there anymore. I pulled her close, breathing in her strawberry-scented hair. No, sweetheart. I'm not sad about that. I'm just grateful we're together. She hugged me tight, her small arms surprisingly strong. I love you, Mama. I love you too, Lily. More than anything in the world. She fell asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out into the soft rhythm of childhood sleep. I sat beside her bed long after, watching the rise and fall of her chest, the peaceful expression on her face. She was safe. Whatever else happened, whatever I had to do, she was safe. A soft knock at the door made me turn. Dominic stood in the hallway, looking somehow both dangerous and domestic in the low light. Is she asleep? I nodded, not trusting my voice. There's something you should see. He gestured toward the living room. If you're up to it. I followed him to where a laptop sat open on the coffee table, security footage playing on the screen. It showed Valentino's from multiple angles, cameras I'd never noticed during my time working there. Watch, Dominic said, pointing to the timestamp. This is 30 minutes before the attack. I watched myself moving through the dining room, serving tables, refilling water glasses. Then I watched the 3 shooters arrive separately, taking positions that I now realized gave them overlapping fields of fire on the private room. I watched the moment I first noticed the fake server at the bar, the subtle change in my body language that indicated awareness. Here, Dominic said, pausing the footage. This is where you make the decision. You could have walked away, could have finished your shift and gone home. No one would have blamed you for not getting involved. Instead, I watched myself grab the check presenter and pen, watched my hands shake as I wrote the warning, watched myself walk directly into danger to deliver it. You had 3 seconds between writing that note and handing it to me, Dominic continued. In that time, the shooters were already moving. If you'd hesitated, if you'd second-guessed yourself, they would have reached the private room first. Your timing was perfect. I didn't know what I was doing. I just reacted. That's what makes it remarkable. He closed the laptop. Training can teach people to recognize threats. But training also creates hesitation, the need to confirm and verify before acting. You saw danger and responded instantly. That instinct, that decisiveness, it can't be taught. What are you saying? I'm saying that my original offer stands, but with clarification. I don't just want you to consult on security. I want you to be part of my inner circle, someone who can spot threats the way you spotted tonight's. Someone who operates on instinct in situations where analysis takes too long.
The magnitude of what he was proposing finally hit me. He wasn't offering me a job. He was offering me a place in his organization, in his life, in the dangerous world where assassination attempts were routine and violence was currency.
I need to think about it. I understand. But Sophia...
He turned to face me fully, his storm gray eyes holding mine.
Think carefully. Because once you're in this world, once you understand how it works and what I do, there's no pretending you don't know. You'll have to choose whether to be part of it or to walk away. And walking away comes with its own risks.
Are you threatening me?
I'm being honest with you. His voice was gentle but firm. I would never hurt you or your daughter. But knowledge is dangerous in my world. Once you know too much, you become either an asset or a liability. I prefer you choose to be the former. The implication was clear. I could work for him, benefit from his protection and resources, become part of his organization. Or I could refuse and live with the knowledge that I knew too much about a man who solved problems with violence.
Neither option felt like freedom.
Get some rest,
Dominic said, reading the exhaustion in my expression.
Tomorrow, we'll discuss practical matters. Your apartment, your belongings, Lily's schooling. For tonight, just sleep. You're safe here.
He left me alone in the living room, city lights sparkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows, luxury surrounding me like a gilded cage. I returned to the bedroom where Lily slept peacefully, oblivious to everything that had changed. I lay down on the second bed, still fully clothed, too exhausted to change, but too wired to sleep. My mind replayed the evening on an endless loop. The moment I'd noticed the fake server, the desperate scrawl across the receipt, the gunshots that still echoed in my ears, the look in Dominic Castellano's eyes when he'd read my warning. I'd saved his life, and in doing so, I'd bound myself to him in ways I was only beginning to understand. The debt he spoke of wasn't just about gratitude or protection. It was about connection, about being pulled into orbit around someone whose gravity was strong enough to reshape everything around it. David would have told me to run, to take Lily and disappear, to choose poverty and struggle over compromise with dangerous men. But David was dead, and I was alive, and I had to make choices based on the world as it was, not as I wished it could be. Through the bedroom door, I could hear low voices, Dominic speaking to someone, probably his security team, probably discussing the next phase of whatever war he was fighting. A war I was now part of, whether I'd chosen to be or not. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, knowing tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new ways of measuring the distance between the person I'd been this morning and whoever I was becoming. The last thought I had before exhaustion finally claimed me was of that receipt, those desperate words scrolled in trembling handwriting.
Run now.
I'd warned Dominic Castellano to run. Instead, we'd both run toward each other. And now there was no running away. The next morning arrived too early, sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover. Lily was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed and playing with the stuffed animals Elena had provided. She looked up when I stirred, her face bright with childish excitement. "Mama, can we have pancakes? Miss Elena said she makes the best pancakes in the whole world." I smiled despite my exhaustion.
Let's go find out if that's true.
The kitchen smelled of coffee and something sweet baking. Elena stood at the stove, cooking with the easy competence of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. She looked up as we entered, her expression warm.
"Good morning. I hope you both slept well. Lily, would you like to help me flip pancakes?"
My daughter practically vibrated with excitement, and I felt a pang of guilt that something as simple as making pancakes felt like a special treat to her. How long had it been since I'd had time or energy to do more than feed her the cheapest, quickest meals I could manage? While they cooked together, I poured coffee and tried to orient myself in this new reality. Through the window, I could see Manhattan waking up, people heading to work, taxis navigating traffic, the ordinary rhythm of a city that had no idea how close it had come to another headline last night. "Mr. Castellano had to leave early," Elena said, apparently reading my thoughts. "Business to attend to. But he left instructions that you should make yourself at home. Anything you need, just ask." "Where did he go?" Something flickered in Elena's expression. Knowledge she wouldn't share. Questions she wouldn't answer. "Business. He'll be back this afternoon." The word business in this context probably meant something violent. probably meant eliminating threats, tying up loose ends, doing whatever it took to ensure the men who tried to kill him last night wouldn't get another chance. I tried not to think about it too hard. After breakfast, I showered in the enormous bathroom, washing away the previous night's trauma under water pressure that felt like luxury. Someone, probably Elena, had stocked the bathroom with clothes in my size. Simple things, jeans and sweaters, but all new, all fitting perfectly. The attention to detail was almost unsettling. How much had Dominic's people learned about me in such a short time? What else did they know that I didn't realize they knew? I was toweling my hair dry when my phone rang. An unknown number, but something made me answer.
Sophia Chen?
A woman's voice, professional and cool. Yes?
My name is Detective Sarah Martinez with the NYPD. I'm investigating the incident at Valentino's Bistro last night. I understand you were working there during the attack?
My heart rate spiked. I'd known the police would want to talk to me eventually, but I'd hoped for more time to figure out what I was supposed to say.
I was there, yes. I'd like to speak with you about what you witnessed. Could you come down to the precinct today? Or I could come to you, if that's easier.
Dominic had said any police contact should go through his attorneys, but refusing to talk to the police would look suspicious, would raise questions I didn't want raised.
I need to check my schedule. Can I call you back?
Of course. But Ms. Chen, I should let you know that 3 men died last night. We're treating this as a homicide investigation. Your testimony could be crucial. 3 men dead. The shooters. I'd seen them fall, had heard the gunshots, but somehow hearing it stated so clinically made it more real.
I understand. I'll call you back soon.
I hung up and immediately called the number Dominic had given me for emergencies. He answered on the second ring.
Sophia, what's wrong?
The police just called. A detective wants to talk to me about last night.
Detective Martinez. I expected she'd reach out.
His tone was calm, unsurprised.
Don't talk to her without my attorney present. I'll have James Reynolds contact you within the hour. He'll arrange the meeting and ensure you're protected.
Protected from what? I'm just telling the truth.
The truth is complicated.
I heard traffic sounds in the background, suggesting he was in a car. The official story is that 3 armed men attempted to rob the restaurant. My security team responded with appropriate force. That's what the evidence supports, and that's what everyone involved will testify to. But that's not what happened. It's close enough to what happened that it becomes the truth. His voice hardened slightly.
Sophia, I need you to trust me on this. The real story, that this was a coordinated assassination attempt by Albanian organized crime, opens doors neither of us wants opened. It invites federal investigation, RICO charges, scrutiny that could endanger everyone involved, including you and Lily. So I lied to the police. You tell them what you know without speculating about motivations you can't prove. You witnessed armed men entering the restaurant. You saw my security respond. That's all factual. What you don't do is mention warning me, or suggest this was anything other than a robbery gone wrong.
Every instinct I had screamed that this was wrong. But every survival instinct I'd honed in the Bronx told me that Dominic was right. Getting involved with police investigations in this world would only make me more of a target, not less. Okay, I said finally. I'll wait for your attorney.
Good. James is excellent. He'll make sure you're protected.
He paused.
Sophia, I know this is difficult. I know I'm asking you to compromise in ways you never thought you would, but I'm trying to keep you alive. Please trust me.
After he hung up, I sat on the edge of the enormous bathtub and tried to reconcile the person I'd been yesterday with whoever I was becoming. A week ago, my biggest moral compromise had been occasionally giving customers incorrect change when they were rude. Now I was preparing to give false testimony to police about a triple homicide. The distance between those 2 versions of myself felt unbridgeable. Elena knocked softly on the bathroom door.
Sophia, there's someone here to see you. A lawyer. Mr. Reynolds.
James Reynolds was exactly what I expected. 50s, expensive suit, the kind of polished competence that came from years of practice in high-stakes cases. He shook my hand with a firm grip and got straight to business.
Ms. Chen, I represent Dominic Castellano's interests, but in this matter, I'll be representing you personally. That means attorney-client privilege applies to everything we discuss. Understood?
I nodded.
Good. Let's talk about what you're going to tell Detective Martinez.
We spent the next 2 hours going over my statement. James was meticulous, asking about every detail, every moment, every word I might say. He coached me on how to answer questions, how to redirect when asked about things I didn't want to address, how to appear cooperative while revealing nothing that could complicate the official narrative. It felt like learning a script for a play I'd never auditioned for.
Remember,
James said as we wrapped up,
you're a victim here. You were working your shift when armed men entered and started shooting. You were terrified. You did what you were told. You don't speculate about why they were there or what they wanted. You just describe what you saw. That's a lot of don't knows for someone who was actually there. Fear and trauma impair memory. That's well documented. No one will question why a waitress caught in a shooting can't remember every detail perfectly. His expression softened slightly. Ms. Chen, I understand this is uncomfortable, but this approach protects you. The alternative, telling the police this was a targeted assassination attempt, makes you a material witness in a major organized crime investigation. That brings federal attention, media attention, and danger you can't imagine. More danger than I'm already in? Different danger. The kind that follows you even if Dominic eliminates every current threat. The kind that never goes away. So I had a choice between lying to the police and becoming a permanent target for every future investigation into Dominic's activities. Some choice. The meeting with Detective Martinez was scheduled for that afternoon at the precinct. James drove me there in a car that probably cost more than I'd earn in 5 years, coaching me one last time on what to say and what not to say. The precinct was exactly like every cop show I'd ever seen. Fluorescent lights, cluttered desks, the smell of burnt coffee and old paperwork. Detective Martinez was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Chen, thank you for coming in. She shook my hand and led us to an interview room. I know this must be traumatic. I'll try to keep this brief. James positioned himself slightly behind me, a reminder of his presence without being intrusive. For the next hour, I told the story as rehearsed. Armed men entered the restaurant. People started screaming. Mr. Castellano's security responded. I hid behind a table until it was over. No, I didn't know why they targeted Valentino's. No, I didn't hear what they said. No, I didn't see faces clearly enough to identify anyone beyond what I'd already told them. Detective Martinez asked her questions with the patient persistence of someone who'd interviewed hundreds of witnesses. She probed for inconsistencies, for details that didn't match other accounts, for signs I was hiding something. But James had prepared me well. Every answer was consistent. Every, I don't know, defensible. Every gap in my memory explained by fear and trauma. One last question, Martinez said as we were wrapping up. How did you end up in Dominic Castellano's protection afterward? That seems unusual for a restaurant employee with no prior connection to him. This was the dangerous question, the one that could unravel everything. He felt responsible, I said, sticking to the script James had prepared. His security team got me out of there during the chaos. When he learned I was a single mother who'd just lost my job because of what happened, he offered temporary housing until I could get back on my feet. It's charity, basically. Dominic Castellano is known for many things. Charity isn't usually one of them. Maybe people don't know him as well as they think they do. Martinez's expression suggested she didn't believe that for a second, but she couldn't prove otherwise. After another few questions that went nowhere, she finally released us. Thank you for your time, Ms. Chen. If you remember anything else, please call me. She handed me her card. And Ms. Chen, be careful. Dominic Castellano's world is dangerous. Whatever he's told you, whatever he's promised, remember that people in his life tend to end up either very rich or very dead. Sometimes both. The warning followed me out of the precinct, settling into my bones alongside all the other fears I was collecting. James didn't comment on it during the drive back to the penthouse, but I could see him processing it, probably already planning how to counter any future police interest in my relationship with Dominic. Back at the safe house, Lily was having a tea party with stuffed animals while Elena supervised. She looked up when I entered, her face lighting up with a smile that made every compromise worth it. Mama! Look, Miss Elena taught me how to make tiny sandwiches. I joined her on the floor, admiring her handiwork, letting the simple domesticity wash away the afternoon's stress. This was why I was doing this. Not for money or protection or anything else. For moments like this, where my daughter could just be a child, safe and happy and unaware of how close the darkness pressed against the windows. Dominic returned just before dinner, looking tired but satisfied in a way that probably meant bad things for his enemies.
He caught my eye across the room and gestured toward the private study.
How did it go with Martinez?
He asked once we were alone. Fine, I think. James was excellent. He usually is. Dominic poured himself a drink, then offered me one. I shook my head.
You should know that the Shala organization has been significantly dismantled. The men who ordered last night's attack are no longer a threat.
The careful phrasing told me everything I needed to know.
You killed them. I eliminated a threat to you and your daughter.
He took a sip of whiskey, his expression unreadable.
The world is safer without them in it. Does it ever bother you?
The question escaped before I could stop it.
The killing, the violence, does it keep you up at night?
He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his glass.
Every night,
he said finally.
Every single night. But I sleep better knowing the people I care about are alive to see morning.
The raw honesty in his voice surprised me. I'd expected deflection or justification, not this glimpse of the cost his choices carried.
I'm not a good man, Sophia.
He set down his glass and looked at me directly.
I've done terrible things for what I believed were good reasons. I've built an empire on violence and fear. I won't pretend otherwise or ask you to see me as something I'm not. Then what are you asking? For you to see me as I am, and decide if you can live with that.
He moved closer, not threatening but intent.
Because I meant what I said last night. I want you as part of my organization, not just for your instincts, though those are valuable, but because you're the first person in years who looked at me and saw someone worth saving.
The confession hung between us, raw and unexpected. I thought of the receipt I'd written, those desperate words that had changed everything. I'd seen a man in danger and reacted on instinct, without knowing who he was or what he represented. Maybe that's what made it matter. I'd saved Dominic Castellano not because of what he could do for me, but because he was a human being whose life had value.
I don't know what you want me to say. Say you'll stay. Say you'll let me protect you and Lily while you figure out what comes next. Say you'll consider my offer when you're ready.
He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and took my hand.
I know I'm asking you to trust someone you have every reason to fear. But I swear to you, Sophia, I will never hurt you or your daughter. You're safe with me.
His hand was warm, calloused. The hand of someone who'd done hard work and harder things. I should have pulled away, should have maintained distance and boundaries and all the protective instincts David had valued. But David was dead, and I was alive. And this dangerous man was offering something I desperately needed. Safety for my daughter and maybe, eventually, a future that didn't involve choosing between rent and food.
Okay, I whispered. We'll stay. For now.
The relief that crossed his face was profound, transforming him from dangerous crime boss to something almost vulnerable.
Thank you.
That night, after Lily was asleep and Elena had retired to her own room, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows and watched Manhattan glitter below. Somewhere out there, people were living normal lives. Going to jobs they hated, worrying about mundane problems, sleeping peacefully without armed guards outside their doors. I'd been one of them just 24 hours ago. Now, I was something else. Something I didn't have a name for yet. Dominic appeared beside me, his reflection ghostly in the glass.
Can't sleep? Too much to think about. Want to talk about it?
I turned to face him, this man who'd killed to protect me, who'd upended my life and promised to make it better through methods I didn't want to examine too closely. Tell me about your world, I said. The real version? If I'm going to be part of it, I need to understand what that means. So he did. For hours, we sat in that penthouse while Dominic Castellano told me about the empire he'd built, the wars he'd fought, the prices he'd paid. He didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't try to make himself look better than he was. He told me about growing up in a world where violence was currency, where loyalty mattered more than law, where survival meant being harder than your enemies. He told me about the people he'd lost, the mistakes he'd made, the nightmares that still haunted him. And slowly, I began to understand that Dominic Castellano wasn't a monster. He was a man shaped by circumstances I'd never faced, making choices in a world I'd never understood, carrying burdens that would have destroyed someone weaker. That didn't make what he did right, but it made him human. As dawn began to paint the sky pink and gold, he finally stopped talking. We sat in exhausted silence, Two people who'd found each other through violence and were trying to figure out what came next. I'm scared, I admitted finally.
Good. Fear keeps you alive.
He stood, offering me his hand.
But Sophia, you don't have to be scared alone anymore.
I took his hand and let him pull me to my feet. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new ways of measuring who I was becoming. But tonight, for the first time since David died, I didn't feel completely alone. And maybe, in Dominic Castellano's dangerous world, that was as close to safety as anyone could get. 3 months passed in a blur of new routines and dangerous revelations. Lily started at a private preschool with security so tight, I sometimes wondered if she noticed the armed guards disguised as maintenance workers. I officially joined Dominic's security team, my instincts proving valuable enough that his other advisors grudgingly accepted my presence at strategy meetings, and somewhere along the way, without either of us planning it, Dominic and I became something more than protector and protected. It started small, his hand lingering on mine when passing documents, the way his eyes found me across crowded rooms, late nights talking in his study that stretched into early mornings, conversations that ranged from philosophy to childhood memories to dreams neither of us thought we'd ever achieve.
Tell me something true,
he said one night, both of us exhausted from a 16-hour day analyzing potential threats to a new business acquisition.
Something you've never told anyone else.
I thought about deflecting, maintaining the professional distance that was already crumbling. Instead, I found myself saying, I'm terrified that Lily will grow up thinking this is normal, that violence and danger and looking over your shoulder constantly is just how life is. I wanted better for her than I had. But this, I gestured at the security monitors, the weapons cabinet, the whole apparatus of Dominic's world. This isn't better. It's just different. He was quiet for a long moment.
When I was 8, my father was killed in front of me, shot by a rival family during what was supposed to be a peaceful negotiation.
His voice was carefully controlled, but I heard the old pain beneath it.
My mother told me that I could either let that violence define me, or I could use it to build something stronger. I chose to build, but Sophia...
He turned to face me fully.
I've spent my whole life making sure no child in my organization ever witnesses what I witnessed. That includes Lily. How can you promise that when your whole world runs on violence?
Because I'm changing it. Slowly, carefully, but changing it. He pulled out his phone, showed me financial documents I didn't fully understand.
40% of my operations are now completely legitimate. In 5 years, I plan for that to be 70%. In 10, I want my family's name associated with construction and real estate, not with the things we had to do to survive in the beginning.
And the other 30%?
Will always exist, because there are some problems that can't be solved with money or lawyers or patience.
His gray eyes held mine.
But they'll be contained, managed, kept far away from the people I love, especially your daughter.
The casual way he included himself in Lily's life made my heart stutter. She'd taken to him with the easy affection of a child who'd been missing a father figure, calling him Mr. Dom, and dragging him into tea parties that he attended with surprising good humor. You're good with her, I said softly.
She makes it easy. She's remarkable, Sophia. Smart, kind, braver than she knows.
He smiled slightly.
Like her mother.
The compliment settled warm in my chest. I'm not brave. I'm just trying to survive.
That's what bravery is. Surviving when it would be easier to give up.
He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with unexpected gentleness.
I meant what I said 3 months ago. You're the first person in years who made me want to be better than I am.
Dominic, you don't have to say anything. I know this is complicated. I know I'm asking you to consider a future with a man who's done unforgivable things. His thumb traced my cheekbone, his touch achingly tender.
But I need you to know that what I feel for you, it's real, not gratitude or obligation. Real.
I should have pulled away, should have maintained boundaries and remembered all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, I leaned into his touch, letting myself acknowledge what I'd been denying for weeks.
I feel it too, I whispered.
And it terrifies me.
Good. We'll be terrified together.
When he kissed me, it felt like falling and flying simultaneously. His lips were gentle despite the hands that had killed to protect me, his touch reverent despite the violence he was capable of. I kissed him back with 3 months of denied want, with gratitude and fear and something deeper that I wasn't ready to name. We pulled apart eventually, both breathing harder than we should have been. Dominic pressed his forehead to mine, his hands cupping my face like I was something precious.
"Stay with me," he murmured. "Not just tonight. Stay. Build something with me that's better than what we came from." "I'm already staying. I mean permanently. You and Lily. Let me be part of your family. Let me give you both everything I have."
The proposal was characteristically direct. No pretense of romance or traditional courtship. Just honest want and the promise of protection that came with loving Dominic Castellano. I thought of David, who'd died being a hero, who'd believed in justice and doing the right thing even when it cost everything. He would have hated this, hated Dominic, hated what I was becoming. But David was gone, and I was alive, and I had a daughter who deserved a future without constant fear and poverty. "Ask me again in 6 months," I said finally, "when I've seen more of your world and decided if I can really live in it."
"Fair enough."
He kissed me again, slower this time, a promise of patience and intent.
"But Sophia, I'm not going anywhere. However long it takes, I'll wait."
The crisis came 2 weeks later. I was reviewing security footage when I noticed something wrong. A delivery truck that had been parked across from Lily's preschool for 3 consecutive days. Different company logos each time, but the same vehicle, the same 2 men inside. "Dominic!" I called him over, pointing at the screen. "This is a surveillance pattern. Someone's watching the school." His expression hardened as he studied the footage. Within minutes, he had people running the license plates, tracking the vehicle's movements, identifying the men inside. What they found made my blood run cold. The truck belonged to Dritan Marku's organization. The Albanian boss I'd been told was eliminated months ago had apparently survived, regrouped, and was now targeting the one thing Dominic cared about more than his own life. Lily.
"Pull her out of school immediately," Dominic ordered. "Triple her security detail. I want eyes on every approach to this building and—"
"No!" The word came out stronger than I expected.
"No, we're not doing this."
He turned to me, surprise flickering across his face.
"Sophia, they're targeting your daughter. I know, which is why we're not playing defense anymore."
I stood, channeling every ounce of courage I'd found since that night at Valentino's. "You said you were changing your world, making it safer. Prove it. End this threat permanently, not by killing everyone who looks at us wrong, but by making peace."
"You can't make peace with men like Marku."
"You haven't tried. You've just fought, escalated, responded to violence with more violence." I moved closer, holding his gaze. What if there's another way? What if you could negotiate a truce that actually holds? And if he refuses, then you do what you have to do. But Dominic, if you want Lily to grow up in a world that's better than this, you have to start building that world now, not in 5 years or 10. Now. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then slowly something shifted in his expression.
"You're right. God help me. You're right."
He pulled out his phone.
"I'll reach out to Marku's people. Propose a meeting. Neutral territory, proper security for both sides. I'm coming with you."
"Absolutely not. If it goes wrong, I want to be there. Besides, you need someone present who both sides know isn't looking to escalate. I'm that person." I took his hand.
"We do this together."
The meeting was arranged for the following week at a restaurant in neutral territory with security teams from both sides maintaining careful distance. Dritan Marku was older than I expected, maybe 60, with the weathered face of someone who'd survived decades in a violent business.
"Mr. Castellano,"
he said, his accent thick but his English clear.
"You requested this meeting. I am curious what you think we have to discuss."
"Peace," Dominic said simply. "A formal truce between our organizations, defined territories, mutual respect, an end to the violence that's cost both of us too much." Marku's laugh was bitter.
"You killed my nephews. 3 boys, barely men, trying to make names for themselves. And you want peace? They tried to kill me first. I responded."
Dominic's voice was firm but not aggressive.
"But Dritan, how many more nephews will you lose before you admit this war benefits neither of us? How many funerals will we attend before we acknowledge that the real enemies are the federal prosecutors and rival organizations, not each other?" Pretty words from a man who's killed dozens of my people. And you've killed dozens of mine. We're even in blood.
Dominic leaned forward slightly. But we don't have to stay even. We can choose something different. For the people who depend on us. For the families who suffer when our wars spill into streets and homes. I watched Marco's face, seeing the calculation there, the weighing of pride against pragmatism. Then I spoke, surprising both men.
Mr. Marcoux, I'm the one who warned Dominic about your nephew's attack. I'm also a mother with a 4-year-old daughter. When I learned your people were watching her school, my first instinct was fear. My second was to beg Dominic to kill everyone involved.
I met his eyes steadily.
But that would just continue the cycle. More death, more revenge, more children growing up without fathers. Is that really what you want your legacy to be?
For a long moment, Marcoux studied me. Then he turned back to Dominic.
This woman speaks sense. More sense than either of us has shown.
He paused.
Tell me your terms.
The negotiation lasted 4 hours. By the end, we had the framework of a truce. Defined territories, shared intelligence on federal investigations, a dispute resolution process that didn't involve bullets. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As we left the restaurant, Dominic pulled me close.
You were magnificent in there. Fearless.
I was terrified the entire time.
Like I said, fearless.
He kissed my temple.
You just changed my world, Sophia. Maybe you can save it too.
6 months later, I stood in Dominic's penthouse wearing a simple white dress, while Lily scattered flower petals with serious concentration. The ceremony was small. Just Elena, a few of Dominic's most trusted people, and a judge who owed him favors.
Do you, Sophia Marie Chen, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?
I looked at Dominic, this dangerous, complicated man who'd killed to protect me and was trying to build something better for my daughter, who kissed me like I was precious and held Lily through nightmares with infinite patience.
I do. And do you, Dominic Anthony Castellano, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?
I do. His voice was steady, his gray eyes holding mine with absolute certainty.
For the rest of my life, I do.
When he kissed me, it tasted like promises and hope and the terrifying possibility that love could exist even in the darkest places. Lily cheered, Elena cried, and somewhere in the city below, life continued. Ordinary and extraordinary, dangerous and safe, exactly like the world we were building together.
That night, after Lily was asleep and the guests had gone, Dominic and I stood at the windows overlooking Manhattan. His arms wrapped around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Thank you, he murmured. For what? For scribbling run on that receipt. For being brave enough to save a stranger. For giving me a reason to become someone worth saving.
He turned me to face him.
For choosing me, despite everything.
I touched his face, this man who'd been shaped by violence but was choosing tenderness.
Thank you for protecting us, for being patient, for proving that even in your world, there's room for something good. We'll make more room. Together.
He kissed me softly.
I love you, Sophia Castellano. I love you too.
And standing there in his arms, safe and chosen and home, I understood finally what my warning had really meant. Not just a message to run from danger, but an invitation to run toward something better. We'd both been running toward each other ever since. And we'd keep running, together, building a future where children like Lily could grow up knowing that love was stronger than violence, that courage meant choosing peace, and that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was believe in someone enough to let them change. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.